And we're going to have a conversation with the good folks at Central Washington University. We received a press release. We get them quite regularly. A lot of stuff going on at Central, and um, much of it of interest. So we saw that they were making a decision not to require the ACT and SAT standardized tests to help determine whether you're prepared for your rigorous college academics or not. And they're going to no longer require those. And I thought, well, okay, that's interesting. That's supposed to measure your preparedness and your readiness. So if we're not doing that, why? And is there something else that will help do that? And is this tied into sort of the national wokeness moment? So thought we'd ask, and they graciously said, "Hey, we'll talk about it."
Yeah.
So here we go.
And we're on the phone with us this morning, Dave. We have Michelle DenBeste. She is from Central Washington University.
Michelle, thanks for being here. Pronounce your last name for us so we get it right.
Yeah.
DenBeste.
DenBeste. All
DenBeste.
right.
Okay.
DenBeste. Okay.
All right. All right. Well, Michelle, thanks for being here. You are what, transplanted Californian, are you?
Well, I'm actually a Washingtonian who was in California for 20 years. I grew up in Bellevue and went to UW and then was exiled for years. But I'm back, and I'm really happy to be back.
Well, we're glad you're back in Central Washington. That's
Yeah.
great. Hey, I'm looking on the CWU homepage, CWU.edu, and it's about the application process, first year, your current high school or your year. And there it is, step number 4, optional. Submit your scores for the SAT or ACT, and it is not required now for all first-year applicants. And as I went back and looked over some of the rationale for those tests, it is specifically the ACT states that its scores provide an indicator of college readiness. Are you prepared for the degree of work you can expect to find in college? SAT basically says it assesses students, how they take tests, how they analyze, how they solve problems, skill they learn in school that they will need in college, and working with grade point average combines to provide a better indicator of success. So all of that out the window, or what's going on?
Yeah, kind of out the window. I'm not sure that it was ever as true at all as we thought it was. For years, people just thought they had to take the SAT or the ACT to go to college, and we did. For years, there's also been research saying it's not a good measure of college readiness or college success. It's a huge industry that brings in lots of money, so there's lots of reasons to keep it going. Some schools have done this already before we did. We had been talking about it, apparently not me because I wasn't here, but Central had been talking about this for several years about whether we wanted to do it or not, and then the pandemic kind of speeded up the process because students actually was very hard for them to take the test. So we waived it last year, and then this year finally made the decision to make it test optional, which is the direction the entire California system has gone in. New York schools, kind of scattered across the country. This is what's happening.
Right. Well, using California as the measure doesn't bring me any sense of relief, but it may for others.
But it's big. There's lots of schools there.
Okay. From that perspective, I got you. Michelle, you obviously, I'm guessing, took those tests to get in, right?
I did take those tests.
Do you think that they were a true measure of your ability, or were they just a box to be checked to do your thing?
I did not perform particularly brilliantly on the exams, and I nonetheless did manage to get my PhD. In some sense, I suppose it might have been a measure of my math ability, which is not fantastic.
Which is why they shipped you off to California right there. That's
right. That's it.
All right.
So it's they measure a lot of things. Maybe we could argue that your knowledge of facts, but that's probably not the thing that's going to make you most successful in college either.
No, and it talks about your analytical
Yep.
and problem-solving abilities and all of that. Now, there are those who want to tie this to the woke movement, and that equity says that the black experience or the minority experience in America is different, and therefore they won't show up as well on these tests, but will show up better than the tests show when they get to college. But has there been enough work to demonstrate that? Is there enough research out there?
Yes, I think that there's a lot of research on that. I'm not sure I'd tie it to this movement. People have been talking about this for a very long time, back as long as we've been taking the test. And thus we have lots of research. It absolutely disadvantages students from diverse backgrounds, not just students of color, students who have disabilities, students clearly who come from schools which don't have as many AP classes or don't do test prep in the schools. It's clear that it does measure to some extent your ability to take the test. It clearly measures, have you had any practice taking the exam before you show up? Can you afford to take it 5 or 6 times to get your best possible score? So it certainly measures economic inequalities.
So gaming the system rather than having it reveal what it is about your preparedness for college as opposed to your preparedness to pass this particular test. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I think that's a very fair statement. And we want to see these as being objective, right? It would be lovely to have an objective measure of which students should go to college. But they're just not.
Well, isn't that why
they're one measure, and I suppose if they're used in combination with lots of other things, they're probably fine.
But that's why we have recovering Californians with PhDs to come up with new stuff, isn't it? Isn't that? Don't we need a measure of some kind? I was kind of shocked when Washington State dropped the Washington Assessment of Student Learning. They said it was too hard. It was too hard. Therefore, we got to throw it out. And I thought, well, if it truly was given the input and oversight when it was created, if these are the things that you need to know to be a success, why are we lowering those standards and rather not raising up the education so that people can meet those standards? Why the toss it out approach versus the uphold the underpinnings approach?
Why not just measure grades and what classes you've taken in school? So we know that if you take college preparedness classes, you're supposed to be prepared for college. Of course, that's not equal. All schools do not teach exactly the same. Yeah. But I think there's other ways. If we really wanted to test, we arguably could develop one. I don't think these are them. You would need a test that isn't just a standardized test, and we have a hard time doing that. Essay tests are probably fine, but it takes a lot more time to read them.
But it was the pandemic that I guess in essence forced Central to take this move this year, right, or in the last year, not because of anything else. It was the pandemic.
Well, we were forced to do it last year, and then we just decided, why not keep doing it?
So how are
I'm not sure that Central has relied on standard. We took them. I don't know that we put a whole lot of weight on them. Students could get in if they had poor test scores, so I don't know that it really changes a great deal for us.
Well, I got in, so that says a lot.
You didn't go to Central, though, did you? Did you go to Central?
Yeah, I went to Central.
But you left.
I left.
Why?
I was
a whole another story.
Yeah, thank you. But how are you measuring students now? What kind of
They automatically get in if they have a 3.0 and they've taken the requisite what Washington State calls the college academic distribution requirements. So, high school English 4 years, 3 years of math. I don't know. There's a whole list of requirements on our website. So it's the typical college prep classes that a student would take if they want to go to college.
English, math,
and
reading,
then
and
if
science.
they don't have a 3.0, we might still let them in, but then they need to submit a personal statement, some letters. It's a more comprehensive review.
So there have been stories earlier, and granted, we're a small market radio station, and we don't necessarily have the research capabilities at some of other media outlets. But we've heard that there's a concern about high schools. Some of the nation's most prestigious high schools are dropping requirements to allow more people in, and then there's a concern about that, whether they can handle the workload. And then there's been some colleges that have had some reactions that their performance by disadvantaged groups aren't on the same level as others. And the idea was, well, you got placed in something that, based on how we teach it, you simply weren't prepared for, but we arranged the entry so that you could get in out of a sense of making it fair, but we're not changing the curriculum, and therefore, when we thought you weren't prepared, you weren't. I guess that's my kind of concern, is that we're going to set people up who aren't accurately measured in their preparedness, and then they don't have the success that we'd like everybody to have. That's not a concern at all in this kind of a situation.
Well, we're always concerned about college preparedness, but I just don't think the test is it's not some magic thing that tells us if a student is prepared or not. Students who perform brilliantly on exams get to college and don't do all that well. Yeah. There's a lot of other factors that come into play. And then I think the actual answer is, yes, you need a certain level of preparedness in college, but there's other things that come into play that make students successful or not, some of them which are not measurable at all.
Gotcha. Like if I use my student loan to buy a stereo, like so many kids did in my day,
right?
That probably is not a good indicator of something, right?
Probably, you might have other priorities. And, people are young when they go to college, not always, but typically, and you're still learning things.
Sure. Well, good luck with Central's ability to continue to put the right kids in the right slots for success. Michelle, we appreciate your time this morning and a little clarity that maybe these tests aren't the end all that I guess their own marketing probably kind of told us that they were, as you say, a big and successful industry up until this point. So,
yep.
Yeah, best of good luck. Go Wildcats.
Thanks,
Thank
Michelle.
you. Appreciate it.